So today I have 20 minutes, 25 minutes to talk about, 4 regulations and 1 standards. So I promise, I try to give you a takeaway message for each regulation and the standards. So if you have any question in details, myself and my colleague Kurt will be here to answer your questions. All right? So today I will talk about this global cybersecurity compliance landscape. I'll talk about 4 regulations and 1 standard, and also our approach to how to support manufacturers to comply these regulations. So a little bit about myself. I am responsible for the cybersecurity compliance business in the EMEA region for consumer IoT, medical, payment, and also industrial domains. So before I joined UL Solution, I came from a OEM manufacturer. I was a product manager. I was the one to squeeze R&D team and also everyone in the compliance team squeeze the cost. So now I'm here in the compliance team company. So we have a report here. It estimates the number of IoT device will increase from 38 billion today to 50 billion in 5 years. I believe this figure is conservative because given the booming of AI in recent months, this figure should be increased dramatically because data is the field of AI. Manufacturers need to have connectable device to capture data for various purposes. For example, industrial IoT, smart building, smart healthcare, mobile device, consumer IoT, so far and so forth. So with this massive cybersecurity devices all over the world, it opened the Pandora of cyber attacks. I believe you guys heard a lot about cybersecurity attacks. Let's focus on what global CEO and CISO, Chief Information Officers, concerned about. So there are 4 main concerns. One is disruption of operation. Another one is cyber spying, loss of sensitive data, and also intellectual property. Of course, when there is a ransomware, it could be loss of financial assets. And more importantly, which is cannot be recovered easily, is the brand reputation and your trust from the customer. So we are seeing governments, standard bodies are doing a lot of work. I guess you can feel it in recent years to build regulations, to build standards, to protect users from cyber attacks. But unfortunately, there's no single guideline or single regulation that can support everyone. So as we see, countries, organizations, they are doing their own work. Let's zoom in. Let's have a look about US and European. So we have a UK PSTI. It started last year, April, for consumer connectable products. And we have EU. They have Radio Equipment Directive, RED, to protect radio equipment. And we have the even bigger regulation called CRA, Cyber Resilience Act. It's going to happen in December 2027. In US, it is another regulation. Oh, no, it's not a regulation yet. It's a policy. US Cyber Trust Mark is going to protect consumer connectable products. It's going to happen likely the end of this year or early next year. Let's zoom in US. US Cyber Trust Mark focus on wireless consumer products which can connect it to the internet. Now, the important thing is it's not only talking about the product itself, but also the component associated with the products. For example, mobile app, for example, like smart home, you have the smart home hub, you have the sensors all over the home. All this will be included by Cyber Trust Mark. This is the timeline of this program development. As you may have known, UL Solution has been elected by FCC as the lead administrator. So FCC delegate the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau to be the owner of this program. So a lead administrator is responsible for identifying, developing standards to recommend for the FCC for approval. There are two other roles. The Cyber Label Administrator, they are responsible for issuing the IoT labels and work closely with the lead administrator to execute the policy. And of course, there is a cyber lab to perform the testing. Now, in the past few months, your solutions support FCC to recruit a number of market stakeholders to contribute to the development of the regulatory, the standards. There are 3 working groups: technical requirement development, label requirement, and surveillance requirements. Stakeholders came from manufacturers, consumers, standards, testing organization, and also government, retailer, and distributors. The public recruitment of stakeholders has closed. If anyone want to know more about this program, to contribute to this program, you can come to me. I can connect you to my colleagues in the US. He is the leader of this program. Okay, let's talk about EU. This slide was prepared by the UK government OPSS, the enforcement arm of the UK PSTI regulation. Anyone heard of UK PSTI regulation? Good. All right, now I want to emphasize a few points. This slide talk about the market surveillance. Now, in November last year, the UK government finished the first batch of market surveillance assessment projects. The product was a home appliance. I cannot tell two details. Now, I want to emphasize, the UK government is not trying to penalize manufacturers. The head of OPSS emphasized these few points. They want to understand, they want to encourage manufacturers to understand the regulation, and more importantly, to demonstrate your intention to comply the regulation and the things you have done to prepare for the compliance. So meaning that even though if your product cannot fully comply the regulation, the regulator will give you time to fix it before eventually they penalize you. That is not their main purpose. It's important not only for the UK PSTI, but for the rest of the regulation I'm going to talk about. So RED, anyone heard of RED? Okay, more hands this time. Thank you. So in addition to the current requirements in home and safety, EMC, radio, and common charger, cybersecurity is the new pillar to get the CE mark. So by and large, there are 3 categories of products covered by RED, which is the Internet connectable radio equipment, childcare, radio equipment, and also wearable radio equipment. All these products need to fulfill 3 substandards, Article 343, D, E, and F, respectively, focus on network, privacy, and also monetary transaction. These steps are posted on the EC website. I want to emphasize a few points. Regardless whether you perform your self-declaration or go through a notified body, you need to prepare 3 main documents. Number 1, test report. The test report is a result of documentation assessment and also product testing. Another one, people are confused about this one because cybersecurity is pretty new in the market, for manufacturers. Risk assessment is a document you illustrate how your products is safe with respect to the standards listed in the EN 18001 harmonized standard. The third one has not mentioned here. It's a document you declare whatever you need. For example, there are 2 main areas. Number 1 is whether your products can use the harmonized standards to comply the regulation and to get the EU TEP certificate. Another one is the product categorization. How you categorize your product according to the harmonized standard. This is the restriction. Now, unlike the existing CE mark requirement, we all have harmonized standard, but for cybersecurity, they have restrictions. So here's a table we try to illustrate more easily. There are 4 areas of restriction. So if your product fall into any one of these restrictions, meaning that you need to go through a notified body to perform the conformity assessment to get the EU TEP certificates. Apart from rationale guidance and also allow a user not to use password or not to use any password, the other 2 mainly focus on individual substandards. For example, for childcare and wearable products, if your product fall into this kind, you will fall into the EN 18031-2 restriction. For any product that process virtual money transaction, you will fall into the Article 3.3, EN 18031-3. So having said that, we encourage any product manufacturer to perform a pilot project with a notified body, regardless whether you can go through a self-declaration or need to go through a notified body. Now, the reason why, we learned this not from us. We learned it from our customer manufacturers. Given the RED is new to the market, there's a lot of gray areas because of the scale. It may not be easy to get everything all right. So that's why if you go through a notified body or go through a laboratory to perform documentation assessment, product testing, and also the final conformity assessment, you can get experience from a laboratory. You can get all the templates. You don't need to go through all the documents within the EN 18001. Another factor, remember I mentioned about market surveillance is important. So to increase your successful rate in passing through the market surveillance, you want to reference what a notified body see the compliance process. So we have a lot of customers, they can perform self-declaration. They did make use a one product family as a pilot project to go through the whole process and carry on with all the results experience from us for the rest of their products. Of course, if you don't use harmonized standard, you need to go for unique firewall. Okay, let's talk about CRA. By and large, CRA is even bigger regulation than RED. It covers mainly on hardware and software. And so our scope products include non-commercial products and products from vertical industry like vehicle, medical devices, and so forth and so forth. One important thing is the SaaS services, software as a services, is not included by the CRA. I want to emphasize one point. Similar to what UK PSTI is working, the CRA does not impact the manufacturer only, but also the rest of the supply chain, including importer and distributors. There are a few key milestones I want to emphasize. Number one, by the end of this year, the technical description will be adopted. Right? And another even more important milestone is this one. In 2026, next year, so before the enforcement day in 2027, manufacturers start to have the obligation to report survey incidents or any vulnerability discovered. A report to the EMEA or CSIRT. CSIRT is the Computer Security Incident Response Team. As everyone are focusing on how to comply, and referencing what UK PSTI is doing, maintaining the ongoing reporting mechanisms procedure is even more important from a regulator point of view. So anyone joined the recent CRA workshop conducted by the European Commission? Perfect. Now, I encourage everyone, if you have gone through the RED compliance process in the past 1 or 2 years, you have experienced how heavy is it. So CRA is an even bigger regulation. I would encourage everyone to join the workshop, the working group prepared by the European Commission. So let's talk about your solution, how your solution support manufacturers to comply regulation and standards. So we adopt a methodology. So we are not focusing on certification only. In fact, we are supporting manufacturers throughout the product lifecycle development, starting from perhaps from a prototype stage, in the middle of it, to perform a gap assessment before you carry on your prototype development, to save the cost when you find a vulnerability at the end of the product development cycle. Of course, the final stage could be certification, but I will emphasize, I guess you may have already experienced governments and standard organization has pushing cybersecurity regulation standard dramatically, heavily, rapidly in these 2 years. So make sure you are sustainable for the rest of your product life cycle. So let's zoom in RED. There's a lot of work to do for RED. So we try to simplify everything into 3 stages. The final one is, of course, the conformity assessment. Before that, before you can perform a conformity assessment, you can see there are lots of documents you need to prepare. So the compliance is second stage, which is talking about maybe a gap assessment, maybe a full evaluation. I see some of the manufacturers, they are confident on their product. They will go straight with a full evaluation. But most of our customers, they will start with a gap assessment to understand the gap between their products and the cybersecurity standard listed in the EN 18001. I see manufacturers, they have different level of cybersecurity maturity and readiness to the regulation. So they need this different kind of support. Some, they don't know what is risk assessment because cybersecurity is new to them. So we support them in how to prepare a risk assessment document. And after the gap assessment, when you find the gap, you want someone to support you how to fill the gap, right? So we support the gap management and so on and so forth. So this is our laboratory all over the world. In Europe, we use our laboratory in Basingstoke. We have a laboratory in Leiden, Netherlands. Our notified body is in Italy. Because a lot of loading, and some customers prefer to have an assessment somewhere. Because, for example, I have a customer, they heavily focus on US market. So they prefer the assessment to be done in the US. Now, interestingly, I learned from our manufacturers. They like the arrangement we have a laboratory in China because quite often they have some of the product line produced by the ODM manufacturers partners in India, in Asia, in China. So we have our laboratory in China to talk to the ODM manufacturer in native language. So let's come back to this slide again. So apart from the regulations, US Cyber Trust Mile, UK PSTI, RED, and CRA, there's one boxes in cappuccino color. It's not a regulation. It's a standard. It's a standard developed by the European Union, the ETSI. It's the ETSI EN 33645. This standard has been heavily adopted by all this regulation to different extents. This line summarizes which regulation all over the world adopted this standard. Okay. The reason why I bring this out is important for you 2 years ago and today. All right? That is the typical path of manufacturer, how to comply to RED. Any manufacturer, they haven't started anything in the past 2 years. They will go straight using the harmonized standard EN 18001 to comply the regulation. There are some manufacturers, they started 2 years ago. At that time, there was no standard from the EU yet, but they recommend a few international standards. For example, for industrial products, IEC 62443-4-2 is an international standard cybersecurity framework manufacturer reference in the past 2 years to prepare for the RED. For consumer or IoT device manufacturer, most of them started with ETSI EN 33645. So the key difference between these two sets of manufacturers, for example, if manufacturers start straight away, directly with the EN 18001, for example, if it takes 9 weeks to finish the project, manufacturers have already got the certificate or preparation using this standard. They only need 3 weeks, 1/3 of the whole resources of course, and the cost. So I would encourage anyone, if your product fall into the CRA, you need to take action today to think about what you need to do rather than waiting for the release of the CRA standards. Okay. Now, it's a quick session. I use 25 minutes, 20 minutes to go through 4 standards, 4 regulations, and policy, and 1 standards. So if you have any question, you can come to talk to me and my colleague Kurt over here. And he can arrange a free complimentary 45 minutes workshop. Thank you. Any question before I go? Okay, our booth is at D15, right? Yes, you can come to our booth to ask in-depth questions. Thank you.